And we're live.
All right, we should be good. Good evening, everyone. Hope you're all well. If you could let me know whether you can hear my voice and see my screen by the miracle of screen share technology, that would be fantastically helpful. And then we'll get rolling. Fantastic. Looks like the technological prowess is unprecedented, as always.
Yeah, going well.
Great. So it's Casual Friday. Obviously, we'll try to keep it somewhat casual. I don't think I'm very good at that when it comes to live streams. They just turn into these lecture-like monologues. I mean, God bless anyone who sits through those. But hopefully with the duck here, he can be the balancing force and we can tone down the intensity a bit, for lack of a better term, right? Anyway, first things first, thank you to Bybit for sponsoring Technical Roundup. Very nice of them to do so, and they're a pleasure to work with. Their links are in the description, and they've also got a trading competition coming up. If you want to see Donald and I make some content, duke it out, or just lose all of our money in that, leave a comment on the video itself, and we will come up with some terrible ideas, I think it's fair to say. Other than that, if you could leave a like on this video, or maybe once we say something clever, if you think we should earn it, that also works, but don't forget to do all that subscribe-y notifications, classic YouTube wannabe influencer starter pack. That would be great. Now, I think what makes sense is I'll just quickly zoom through Bitcoin and maybe ETH, and the reason I'm doing it is because Don said he hasn't got anything to share, which is cool. He will anyway, I'm sure, but it's kind of not moved since his last live stream, which was a couple of days ago. That's cool. And then we'll mostly hand it over to you guys. Obviously, if the chat is completely dead, we'll take the initiative. But if you ever wanted to get us to look at certain instruments or coins, and one of the titles that I actually recommended for this live stream, which Donald was not a fan of, was, what was it? It was like chart monkey feeding time at the zoo live stream, something like that.
I didn't like it.
Yeah, so I mean, we might do some sort of version of that in a bit, right? But Bitcoin, anyway, for me, or since we last spoke about it, nothing too crazy. I can kind of understand why. I understand Donald's reluctance to some extent, because all we've had really was the same consolidation around 9.3, 9.2. This area. The only meaningful observation we made that it generally turned from an area of support, which it was previously, to an area of resistance, which is okay, fine, in a very tight range, obviously, especially looking at very recent price action. That much is obvious. And then since then, we had a breakdown, but that breakdown basically hit the daily support we've had for a while at 90.60 or just the 9K handle, right? And now we're floating back up towards this same area, 9.2, 9.3. I mean, is it a bearish retest? Perhaps. But you could also make the same argument that we had the poke above the level and then just went back to sideways. This could be the poke below the level before going back to sideways as well. Price seems very obsessed with this 9.2, 9.3 area. And just like we said in the newsletter, which is free, it's in the description, go sign up to it. We don't want to get into this crazy support resistance ping pong loop where you have close above, bullish, close below, bearish, close above, bullish, and you basically do that and flip a million times while price does absolutely nothing, right? That's something we want to avoid. I've fallen victim to that more than I'd like to, so that's definitely important. So for me, kind of what would be significant if we don't just get the floaty chop thing, well, you know that the level for me, and it's based off of this close at 90.60, that's kind of what's holding up this drop. So as mentioned, any break of FTA, loss of support at 90.60, if there's the privilege of selling any sort of rally or retest of this level, as long as it doesn't get accepted or start basically slow down, I'd be looking from 90.60 to our range low and maybe even some sort of overextension through it should volatility pick up to 8.5, 8.6. I think that would be reasonable. Otherwise, nothing crazy high conviction here. We've had a break in the consolidation to the downside. At the moment, it's bouncing off support. So I think we're very likely to retest the same area, which is where price has been doing most of its business, right? Nothing too strong, but just to be contextually aware of where we are. ETH, kind of similar, right, in terms of levels. Nothing really too different. You'll know from, again, my live stream, the newsletter, blah blah blah. We had the eyeball kind of range with resistance. I hope I'm drawing this right. I could be completely wrong. Resistance in this type of area. I hope I'm right. Around 250, I think I said, and you can go read it in case I'm messing it up here. Resistance around the 250 handle, and then support around the 230 handle. And I was looking for and interim support off of this lowest close. And I was thinking, right, if we lose the 240 level, this is kind of our range, right? You've got resistance. Oh my god, that is not the pen. Resistance around 250, this kind of area, right? Support around 230, this kind of area, and then we were sort of at the midpoint, or at least the immediate support at 240. And I sounded very smart. Oh, well, if we lose this level, range to range, etc. But as you can see on the hourly time frame, it's pretty much, I mean, one candle completed the whole move. So nothing actionable there. The TA side of things was great, but in terms of creating an actionable trade, nothing there. And just like Bitcoin, right, we broke down from an area where price has done a lot of its trading. Unlike, I mean, we hit the 4-hour support that we were looking at for the same reasons, right, around the 230 handle, which for me was this consolidation here. I didn't opt to knife catch it, and as you can see, price didn't spend much time there as well. So again, similar story, breakdown from the really tight range, right? Hit some sort of support structure, and I don't think it's unreasonable to see price float back to the same level. Now, whether that's going to be significant or not, who knows, right? It could just start chopping at the level again. But if I get any sort of bearish retest setup, I'll at least take a stab at it and get out of the way if it doesn't turn quickly. So that's kind of me and Bitcoin and ETH. I'm going to stop screen sharing now. People are even asking if Donald's here now. I mean, goodness me, how long have I been going on for? So that's all I've got. If you've got any questions, let me know. Stop presenting.
No, I think that was.
And we're back.
I think that was clear enough. I mean, that's pretty much how I see it too. Like for me, nothing really changed. Bitcoin's just the same as on Wednesday. And I mean, ETH is interesting. I think we can talk about ETH real quick because ETH actually, like the pair went down for the first time in a while. Well, we had this kind of small down move. But really nothing significant, right? But it's interesting in the sense that Bitcoin didn't really move, and ETH has been starting to move a little bit to the downside.
Oh, by the way, your mic is very low volume. I'm told.
Really?
Can barely hear. 50%. Very low buds. So maybe try swallowing it and see if that helps.
That doesn't really make it much better, I think. But I'll swallow. I'll swallow it.
Just make sure you don't breathe, and then it's great.
Okay, I mean that works.
Or just turn your volume up, guys, right? So Donald doesn't have to choke on his microphone. That is also an alternative.
Yeah, like the figuring out how to kind of make everyone equal volume is kind of hard to do with the setup.
True.
So yeah, but yeah, I think like there's a little bit there in ETH where it's like, okay, it broke out to the upside, right? We talked about this, like pretty much everyone talked about this. So yeah, it made a higher high and then immediately dumped back down. So not something you want to see as a bull, but it's not really bad either because really it's been just straight up going up. So I mean, it could put in something like a pullback and then go back up. But like this still hasn't convinced me that this is the breakout and that it's now going to fly. I've seen that kind of mirrored, like that sentiment mirrored everywhere. For me, it's just like it's literally just bleeding upwards and no confirmed breakout, no nothing. So just boring.
Is it one of those things where you're bearish just because it's retesting? I'm serious. Like the fact that it's come back, is that bad for you?
I mean, it shouldn't have, in my opinion, because so many people were watching it. So, I mean, I'm not going to bearish its support here, right? That doesn't make much sense to me, but it's definitely something to watch. Like, I wouldn't lean bullish here just because it's back at support, because it really shouldn't have tested that support again, in my opinion. But ETH's been just doing ETH things, right? It's just been slowly moving up, and maybe it just does this kind of weird thing that sometimes happens where you get like tiny moves into sideways, into the breakout, retest, and then a tiny move again until you kind of have everyone or a lot of people trapped short and then explode to the upside. But for me, I don't see it so far anyway. So not sold on ETH. I don't know. What do you think about it?
I don't know, honestly. Purely kind of technicals. The weekly close was good, right? So that's important. But we also wrote about how there's kind of an extra risk with ETH BTC, which is that if Bitcoin volatility picks up to the downside, ETH BTC will probably suffer, right?
Yeah.
Regardless of what technicals look like. And that's why it's had so many like technical fake outs at otherwise really nice levels. It's because those kind of breakdowns, I think, if I remember correctly, have been fueled by Bitcoin taking the lead, right?
Yeah.
So, nothing too weighty. I kind of agree that I really don't want it spending too much time, kind of falling back to the 25 level, etc. And any kind of, because the level that we had, and I'm sure that's on your chart, I can see it right now. We stabbed above it like 3 times, then we got the actual breakout, and now we're coming back towards it right now. And I think if it fails again and falls back within the range, at that point it's just like chop, as opposed to a bullish breakout and retest, right? Sometimes you just have to make that concession. But I mean, if we're just using the weekly chart, good until proven otherwise, right? I mean, for me, just purely technically, that consolidation before last week's candle, that kind of structure generally should hold. Again, around the 25 handle, or 24 if you're being extreme. Anything meaningfully below that would be pretty rough, I think. But again, it's not the kind of pair that I actively trade, being completely honest, because the technicals are hard enough. I don't also want to be a slave for Bitcoin volatility on top of just the chart itself, right?
Yeah.
So if I can avoid that, and if I have fewer things to manage, that's easy life in relative terms anyway.
Yeah, and I mean, if you think about it, like really the volatility has been so low that doesn't really make much sense to focus on it anyway. Like there's much better, in my opinion anyway, like there's much better pairs to trade if you want to actually trade it, because like if you trade ETH at the moment, like you get 2% moves in a week. And then you look at some of the other pairs, and I'm sure like Chad has a million of pairs that they want to have us take a look at, but there's a lot of stuff moving big time, and then ETH's just it's just doing sideways, like Bitcoin in a sense. I think ETH and Bitcoin, like even the ETH BTC pair, is just mirroring Bitcoin. Just not much going on.
A few charts are coming up in the chat. I think we can slowly make some progress through them, if especially if there's stuff that looks interesting. Someone mentioned BNB. I'm going to screen share quickly because I think I've got a BNB chart that I talked about. So let me quickly take over your entire screen. Okay,
you've got it.
We go. Right, are we good to go?
Yep.
Fantastic. So my BNB levels actually come from the monthly, which is hilarious, but still significant. So it's essentially, wait, let me make sure I've got it right. Yeah, so that close and that close, fine. So I've got this, and I've been talking about it, or since I charted BNB, these are the monthly levels we've been following: resistance and support, essentially. The pre-breakdown range. You can kind of see the significance, right? Resistance, you have the whole bullish breakout, which fails, and then find resistance again. Hopefully, if you listen to any of my live streams, and I'm sure Donald talks about this as well, this type of pattern, you get a break of resistance, so you get a level that forms at the breakout, and when it comes back and fails, right, that's generally pretty bad. And retests of the level, it's not resistance at the high where price usually struggles, it's actually resistance at the level where price usually struggles. You can call it head and shoulders, you can call it over under, you can call it Quasimodo, you can call it a range high deviation. All of it doesn't matter because the price pattern is the same, right? So that's essentially what I've got and what happened with BNB here. More importantly, what is it doing now? Well, if we bring back the levels on the chart and drop down to a lower time frame, okay, those same levels are now hopefully visible. And what did we have? Well, you see price actually broke through the monthly resistance. And we basically talked about being cautious because even daily breakouts on the monthly time frame, this could end up being the wick. And we wanted to see at least weekly closes or like some sort of continuation through this level. Instead, interestingly enough, it actually went from looking pretty good to looking quite rough, right? Because price traded through the area, fell back below, and is now currently finding resistance below it. So on a high time frame basis, this could be, let's say, the monthly or weekly wick, and then price could just return to this consolidation here. So BNB went from looking really great, just pretty much up to, well, certainly off of this close here, right? Oh, we've reclaimed the monthly level, etc. I wasn't too sure because the time frame was just pretty low compared to where the level comes from. And now we know if we look at the monthly or even the weekly to some extent, it kind of looks more like a failed breakout compared to a reclaim. So that's me kind of on BNB. You could just literally wait for the monthly close to get a better bias. That wouldn't be terribly unreasonable. But where it is right now, given it's failed where it really shouldn't have, that's pretty rough. Hector says it's okay, only Cred swears too much. I'm not sure I've used any profanity during this live stream.
I don't think so either.
Shut the fuck up, Hector. You're wrong.
What do you think about the immediate retest on the monthly? Like, are you worried at all? Like, if you're bearish, it sounded like you were bearish, right?
I mean, right now, yeah, I wouldn't be buying dips.
Yeah. Are you bearish? Are you worried about like the immediate retest on the monthly? Because usually when I look at this stuff, I'm like, it's kind of like it's a breakdown, yeah, but it's pretty much immediately returned to the level. Is that something that you look at?
It is, but I don't. I think it just depends on the instrument. I don't have like a binary view on like immediate retest, good versus bad. I just see how the kind of time frames aligned, and in this case, if it were to just float back below the level, that's fine. But the fact that it's specifically finding resistance, right, having failed below it, is kind of rough for me, at least in the short term. Again, this can switch bias. Like if it then reclaims a level, then I can say, well, now you've got risk defined, and this is just a retest, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
It's very flexible in that regard because we're dealing with monthly levels. We're going to have to refer to lower time frame levels, lower time frames generally in one form or another. And I'm fine with kind of being sort of flippy with these things and saying, well, monthly at resistance, daily looked good, now it doesn't. And then if the daily starts looking good again, then we can revisit the conversation. But I'm always biased towards recency, and recency tells me that kind of we had our consolidation here, broke out, tried to reclaim a high time frame level, and failed for now. So I'm going to presume a return to the old range, right? But I can change my mind with that kind of stuff. It's not a big deal. And as I said, I can always just drop down one time frame lower. So if I'm charting on the monthly or whatever, I can drop down to the weekly to get something a bit quicker and say, well, look, daily, for all I know, it's chop, but maybe a weekly close through the monthly level would be a bit more compelling, and then we can go to the range high. Because the trade is obvious, right? If it reclaims the monthly support, you take it to monthly resistance, right? But if I don't get any kind of time frame alignment, that the weekly looks trash and the daily isn't where I want it, etc., I'll probably leave it.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, makes sense. I mean, I'm not bullish either. I was just interested.
Yeah, I stopped sharing, by the way. There are lots more. I mean, do you want to talk about Link or?
Oh, geez. I mean, what's there to say? I mean, I can't talk about Link, but what's there to say about Link, really? I mean, it's just going to all-time high. Like, it's at all-time high right now. Whenever this stuff, and we wrote about this in the newsletter as well, whenever this stuff kind of breaks out, it goes into price discovery and starts squeezing people. So, I mean, if you're in it, you should have your target set, I think, and then take money out while it's going up. Like, this isn't going to continue forever. Even if you're told by the Link Marines that this is just going to do something like forever go up, right? Always go up. That's not going to be the case. I mean, it might do like a crazy move to the upside, but then you're going to get a retracement. And I mean, I'm still in the boat that I think there's going to be a large pullback on Link at some point. It's just a question of when. It's not necessarily something I would want to short, but yeah, I just like if you have a position, I think it's time to kind of chill in it, and like a high time frame position would be, I think, it it'd be smart to kind of rethink. At the moment, it starts going back below the 51K kind of area. That's, I think, the easiest way to trade it anyway. Like, let's say you're in it from like 18 or 19. If it goes back below that breakout level, I think it's screwed. Until then, do whatever you must. It's kind of what I look like when I look at Link. That's what comes up to me. But there's really nothing like for the shortest. I mean, there's not a level to short. You can kind of short into Euphoria, but really like a blow off top isn't like this isn't the blow off top yet.
It doesn't look like it, right? It doesn't have that sort of, and I think the sentiment is similar either in that regard.
Yeah.
Doesn't feel blow off toppy, at least.
I mean, it could be topping right here, and we just, but it just doesn't look like it, and it would really have to make sense, I think, to be like to stick your neck out and short something at all-time high, because once it's at all-time high, like there's no backholder to sell onto you, right? Like because everyone's in profit, so like the Link Marines are gonna be euphoric, unless you don't like until you get a big Link holder to sell. I mean, it's rough to get like a massive pullback, and I think like it makes sense to sell into something that goes up parabolically, even on the low time frames. But yeah, Link's not my specialty.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. My commentary on Link is just inherently not very useful. Kind of technically at all-time high until a range or some sort of consolidation or some decent levels develop. I'm not going to have much useful input because my system generally doesn't have like really clear trend following hold until you get exit signal type of. That's just not how it works.
Yeah.
Right. I literally remember very vividly learning about horizontal support and resistance levels in like whatever early 2017.
Mm-hmm.
And then I constantly tried to apply it on the Bitcoin chart and thought I was the stupidest guy in the world because I'm like, this thing doesn't have any levels.
Yeah.
Why is everyone teaching me about horizontal levels? And then the market that I trade doesn't have any. And obviously it's because it's just, it's just going up the whole time.
Yep.
There was no resistance. So that's something to bear in mind. Also, my commentary on Link is, again, tainted because my experience of Russians on the internet and just knowing how this is really bad, right? But I really don't care.
Demonetized,
But like
cancelled.
Russians on the internet are just not great. That's my personal experience as someone who grew up in Moscow and for whom Russian is, their first language. It's just there's just something always wrong. I just, I'm skeptical. my countrymen on the internet, especially when there's a kind of overlap with rich Westerners, right? It's just trouble. Yeah, I'm gonna shut up, but you kind of know what I'm getting at, right? Before I get cancelled completely, it's just anecdote, my personal experience, etc. But yeah, I'm gonna literally mute myself before I go any further.
Yeah, I mean, it's been doing well. It's been doing insanely well if you think about it in comparison to the other altcoin charts. So, I mean, ride the trend until it dies, and I think it dies below that level that I've marked out, like that red level down there. Like if it does something like this and starts going to aggressively sell off, I think that's where long-term positions should be worried, I think.
Oh, did you see this? Someone in the chat. Let me see who said that. Gosh, literally just missed it. Hold on. Someone asked about this Link study that came out and whether you've read it.
Oh yeah, I've read it.
The Zeus Capital thing, basically like as a FUD document or whatever, and then like bearish Link basically, and then all these Marines. And do you have any views on any of that? I can't say I've read the study, and maybe I wouldn't even be well equipped to comment. But any kind of eye test things to say.
The thing is, like, study is kind of rich for what it was. Like, it was just one page, and then it just made claims without backing them up. I mean, I kind of agree on a lot of the stuff that was said. It kind of said, okay, yeah, it should go down 99%, which, I mean, I think is a little bit excessive. But they said, like, it's pretty much a marketing scam. So it's like Link is just run by people that know how to market. The Link Foundation dumps all the time. They're trying like to get out of link. There's price manipulation. That's the kind of stuff that you always hear in crypto, right?
Right.
And the thing is, like, I'm always gonna subscribe to that thought, because really, like, crypto's all of this is price manipulation, right? All of these altcoins are. You have a lot of insiders. Like, there's pretty much no cryptocurrency besides maybe Bitcoin that isn't like heavily insider traded. That doesn't mean it has to go down 99%, because otherwise you'd say, okay, everything has to go down 99%. And the other stuff, they didn't really give any kind of credible source or
Substantiate, right?
yeah. Like, whenever I read study and then it's just one page with claims, I kind of just disregard it, because, like, what's that? That, I mean, I come from, like, I went to university. If you said that was a study, um, I mean, you get kicked out the door, right? So yeah, I don't know.
It's also a very weird time to post it, right? It's like this crazy all-time high type of period, and then all the whatever
All the
research
FUD
starts coming out.
comes up.
It's just weird. Maybe there's like another leg to blow those guys out, the FA shorts.
Yeah, I
And
think that's
then who
actually
knows
it.
what happens.
Yeah, I think, like, I mean, there's a lot. This is, in my opinion, there's a high likelihood that this is overvalued at the moment. But there's also, like, the high likelihood that it just squeezes and squeezes and squeezes. Because really, what Link's been doing is just squeeze shorts. There's a
Right.
reason why I haven't been shorting this. Just because, I mean, one, the chart just looks good, right? It's just a bullish
Mhm.
chart. But two, like, you've had on every single leg of these things, you've had people mega bearish on Link, for,
Mm.
like, pretty much no reason other than, okay, Link is going up, everything else is going down, I should be shorting Link. But that's not how markets work, right? When you see an outlier, and in this case Link has been an outlier, the entire bear market, really, it's not the
Yeah,
one
its
that you want to
outlying
be.
track record is outrageous, right?
Yeah,
It's like been secular bull market kind of since inception at the worst time for altcoins. It's like absurd, right?
yeah, it's crazy. And if you think about it, like, Link's been the outlier and the bullish outlier. So,
Mhm.
I mean, you want to be buying that when it dips, because it's an outlier, right? The chance of it, like, the chance of you being right just makes more, like, it's just higher. So it makes more sense to
Mhm.
long it, I think. Um, like, it used to make more sense. Now it's just starting to go crazy. I think that's where it gets risky to long it. Um, I'm not gonna touch it in general, but I think, like, whenever you see an outlier, be it crypto, be it in another market, you shouldn't be rushing in to short it or to long it. Like, let's say you see a crypto in old season, right? Like, everything is going crazy, and then you have a crypto that just starts dumping. Maybe you should be thinking, okay, that's insiders having bad information or some kind of stuff, like something bad on it. Um, like, you don't want to necessarily long something just because it goes down in the bull market, and you don't want to be shorting something just because it goes up in a bear market. Doesn't make much sense, I think.
It's pretty reasonable.
So that's why, like, I don't want to long it here. Definitely not, just because there's nothing really, like, there's no structure to long this. Just, it's at all-time high. But I definitely don't really see a reason to short it just yet. But if you get, like, a blow off top, definitely. I think, and you're gonna get a nice run. Like, if you get a blow off top, wherever that top might be, I think you're gonna get a nice 40, 50, 60, 70, maybe even 80% retracement on that
Okay,
thing.
so you wrote the study. We get it, bro. Relax.
No, I mean, I'm not saying 99%. 99% is very different. No, but, like, crypto generally just retraces in insane amounts, right? And
True. Even
the
when it's bullish.
yeah, even when it's bullish, like, if it's bullish, like 40%, if the entire altcoin, like, I could see a dip on the entire altcoin market where stuff goes down 30%, right? And it
Mhm.
still be, like, in a bull market or whatever. It's just because the moves up, like, you have moves up of 200%, and then you get a retrace of the entire value of this thing of 30-40%. You're like, holy shit. But really, it's just retraced, like, maybe half of that move up.
Yeah,
um
yeah. So it's like scary in percentage terms, but net isn't that
yeah.
bad, right?
Yeah, someone asked about, like, what a blow off top would look like. We can actually, I can
Yeah,
show
please.
that on XRP or something, because, I mean,
Yeah, go
XRP's
for it.
been doing that. uh Not sure if I can go back that far. Yeah, I can. So XRP, for example, this was one that I traded back in the day.
Sure, buddy.
Sold way too early again. Like that's kind of my curse. Sure, buddy. Fuck off. You were actually. I was talking with you about it when I did it. So, but yeah, it had this crazy run, right? And usually in crypto, whenever you get like the massive, massive short squeezes, and XRP kind of did that. At least for the cryptos that you can trade on leverage, those kind of tend to go completely nuts in a very, very short amount of time. So, I mean, they start off slow, right? Like XRP did start off really, really slow, and in crypto they always pop like this. Like it's very rare that you see a crypto just walk up. It usually rounds out and then pops and then goes sideways and then pops again. That's what XRP did here, right? So you kind of round out here, then you get one pop, you go sideways, and you get the second pop, you go a little bit more sideways, which you can't even see on the forward because it was so brief. And then the third move up was a complete ridiculous one, right? So you get a move of 70% in 8 hours, and then you lose a shitload of that move pretty much immediately, right? And I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I look for. Like, whenever you get big, big wicks to the upside, people get liquidated usually, or people are just at Binance hammering the buy button and trying to get in, and then you get stupid wicks, and that's usually those kind of deals usually mark at least a temporary top, and it's pretty much the same for every. I mean, you can look at all the old crazy pumps that we've had. Even for this one, it's a smaller one, right? You get a big, big pump and then an immediate reaction to it. And whenever you get this kind of stuff, it's usually at least in a low time frame top, if not a top in general. And I mean, in Litecoin here, that turned out to be a top. And in this pump, in this one here, you got the blow off top and then you just consolidated the top the entire time. That was really weird. I remember trading this, like Litecoin in general. It just went on and on and on sideways. And people were like, it went sideways for so long, this has to be accumulation. And then in the end, it dumped. But yeah, usually you get something like this. You round out, pump once, go sideways, pump a second time, put in like this very, very short consolidation here, and then put in a huge wick to the upside, immediate reaction to the downside, retest, and then you start heading low. So that's the kind of stuff that I look for. And then if you look at Link right now, right, what you have started rounding out here, and I mean this could be like a low time frame top, but you need that on the bigger time frames as well. So you have like a move up sideways, move up, and then you don't really get the crazy move up afterwards. It just goes sideways here, right? So if it really wanted to top, it would have had to go completely ballistic here, in my opinion. But could also be a top, who knows? But if it would have gone ballistic here and then immediately rejected, I would have looked for somewhere here to sell.
So volatility kind of tends to top out as well as
Yeah.
price,
Yeah,
right? Because you're saying that it goes crazy upside and then retraces like a ridiculous amount, like in all on low time frames, right?
Yeah, and I mean, how I play these things is I just like those kind of rejections usually lead to at least a low time frame top, right? And then if you don't get what you're looking for, as in like a crazy drop, you can just get out and wait for the next pattern to emerge, which usually ends up being the exact same thing again. It rounds out, it pumps again from that new base, and then you get the same pattern again.
You heard him, guys. Keep shorting the uptrend until it works.
No, I mean the good thing is like if you do this and it just kind of goes crazy here, retraces, and then just goes sideways, doesn't really do anything, starts walking back up. Like that's not necessarily something that you want to see, and then you can just get out where you entered, or like that's one of the cases where getting out at break even. it's actually not a bad thing, because you're actually invalidated by it taking long, because tops usually don't take long for these things. Like when you get something like this, you get a parabolic move up and then it goes sideways. I mean, I'd be worried to short that, even on Bitcoin, and in all coins, it's the same thing. You
It's
don't want
almost
to
got like
see
a
that.
time-based invalidation to it, right?
Yeah.
Like if volatility slows down, it's probably not the top.
Yeah,
Is that kind of a fair summary?
if everyone kind of gets to sell the top, it's not really the top. But if
Sure.
it's just one guy just market smashing like half of link supply to the downside, and you get like a 40% candle down, that kind of retraces back up. I mean, then I would have to think, okay, maybe we actually have even like a longer term top in. Like that's usually what happens. Like you get something crazy, someone big sells, puts in a huge candle to the downside, sells it all the way down the order book, and then people buy the dip, and that's usually where you start shorting. Like that's where I try to start shorting once it starts going back up into the area where that big guy sold. But it's just my way of going at it. The thing is, like, there's never a perfect way, and if you're starting to short in an uptrend, I mean, you're gonna burn your fingers more often than not. So gotta be pretty sure that, like, you should have confidence on top of like just seeing patterns and seeing blow off tops coming in. Like if you just link went up and I want to short, but everything else looks bullish and the entire market looks bullish, you might not be in the best position, just because you need confidence and high conviction for these kind of trades.
I
But
think that's a good explanation.
yeah, I hope so.
Not my
Anyway,
cup of tea, but
yeah,
I
you
can
wouldn't
totally
want to
see the
short
logic.
that. I mean, for me, it's kind of like if I were long, I would dump into that. I don't necessarily have to leverage short that kind of stuff. But
Also, we've had a lot of people ask about XLM. That's something I've posted up a bit. Let me quickly grab the screen.
oh,
One click.
where did it go? Oh, that did. I was like,
Am I good to go?
yes.
Yeah, so XLM, the technicals are pretty good. I think getting an entry is another thing, as will often be the case, right? Where we had the breakout from basically the high time frame range, right? This close here, closed above it, and we're now getting buyers stepping in this week as well, which is generally what you want to see. I kind of agree. Certainly, maybe not technicals like purely as a abstract art, which is bloody useless. But with altcoins, I want to see breakouts find continuation. Anything that stalls or floats back or spends several days retesting doesn't make it invalid. It's just maybe the trade will be tougher, or it's going to float back lower and make a higher low before going higher, right? But straight up, like high time frame range breakouts, if it's genuine, most of the time we'll just kind of keep going, right? And the pullbacks you need to be looking for not on the daily or the weekly, but on the, let's say, hourly or 15-minute. At least how I look at it, even though it doesn't suit my trading style particularly well. There's asking about XLM. Broke the level. Where is resistance? Well, pretty much this. Oops, that is not what I wanted. It's pretty much this pre-breakdown range here, right? You could even draw the first trouble area pretty literally as the last low pre-break. Basically support at 1400 before we came to this Goblin Town area, someone said in the chat. And then, again, if it gets this high, in a very similar fashion, resistance, previous support at 2200. Okay, that's the high time frame view. We've had the breakdown from the range. Buyers are stepping in above it as opposed to a kind of pullback retest territory. That's fine. Whereas resistance, 1400, and it's kind of this consolidation generally, but nearest to market or first trouble area is 1400. And then this is around 2100 if we go to the really big level. In terms of like entries and stuff, I think it's harder than just drawing the lines. Obviously, you can see this thing kind of just keeps going. So the pullbacks, any kind of pullbacks will have to be on low time frames. I think generally, and I don't think invalidation is that clear either. You can see the most recent breakout level here. If it floats back into this level, what is that? Around 1070, 1080, whatever. The lowest I think that would be reasonable would be 1040, right? Which is the origin of the most recent breakout. So any kind of pullbacks into roughly this area, I think would be reasonable, but it's the kind of thing where I'm unlikely to trade it personally because, I mean, look, my altcoin trading doesn't make up even a small part of my day-to-day, week-to-week business. But generally, any kind of pullbacks, certainly back to where it broke out from, probably worth a stab purely technically. And if you start getting the kind of retest and fails and starts drifting low, you could always just get the hell out, right? Something I've preferred doing recently is actually taking wider stops, but managing more actively. So I'll get involved at a level, have a wide stops, would give me kind of breathing room to look at price as opposed to look at P&L. And then if it doesn't give me what I want quickly, then I'll get the hell out, right? So that's kind of XLM. I think the high time frames much better than the low time frames. I'd be lying if I said that my system caters amazingly well for low time frame momentum continuation entries. It doesn't, but just purely as someone who's looking at the chart, something like this would make sense. Anything to add there?
I mean, I agree. I have like this long standing thread on XLM, and
Right.
it's actually been my most accurate cryptocurrency analysis ever. But I don't trade XLM because I don't like
Yeah.
it. But yeah, I can show that real quick. Actually,
I think before I yield back, one interesting
yes,
thing for those interested in this type of pattern, have you seen Strat? It actually looks pretty similar, right?
yeah.
Where if you look on the weekly time frame, it's almost synonymous. And I think people were asking about Strat as well, where you have a weekly kind of cluster or level of resistance that caps the market for a long time. You get a strong breakout through the level. Unlike XLM, and this could be a warning sign, I don't think there's enough evidence to tell yet. It's pulled back to the level at around 5,800, but in the same vein, kind of first trouble area would be the last low pre-break in the pre-breakdown range, and then the kind of larger support resistance level closer to 21s. I think the similar type of logic that any pullback should be quick and bid up quickly, and any, oh, well, now we're back in, maybe we'll test support here, etc. That just, there are probably better altcoin trades than that. If this is going to behave in XLM-esque fashion, or if the pattern at least is going to follow its footsteps, I really don't want to see any retests kind of below whatever 56, 5,700, and resistance here and resistance whatever where we marked it out previously. So if you're late to XLM, I think looking at the technicals, there's a good chance that Strat will be easier to trade, or at least invalidate the idea quicker than XLM will. And just structurally, don't ask me about fundamentals. They look somewhat analogous, with one obviously lagging behind the other a bit. I'm just going to stop presenting now.
That's a good catch. Yeah, that's one of the ways to trade the altcoins, I think, is by just looking at that kind of stuff. Like, look at, okay, what did this coin do, and then look at other coins that look the same way. I like that. I like that a lot. For me, XLM, same kind of deal. I've had this marked out forever. Like, I still have it on Twitter somewhere. I'll update it at some point. But this has been my view for a long time, that this area and this area for buying. I mean, it went into it, went sideways, and now goes up, right? In general, I think this is gonna be where it tops out, and then it heads lower. Just because it's always done that. If you look at XLM, how it's been played to the downside, right? It broke down, retested the first resistance, sold off. Hit support, retested the first resistance, sold off. Found support somewhere. I mean, this is pretty much in the middle of nowhere. Bounced, didn't even quite make it back to the resistance, and then sold off. And I think this is gonna be the same way, where it starts like going sideways and runs into resistance, and then probably sells off again. Generally speaking, and I mean, Bagsy asked this question earlier, like, why would you be shorting like the altcoins, or why would you even be looking for shorts on the altcoins? Because the trend's up, right? I mean, if you look at this, the trend's clearly down, right? I mean, the high time frame trend of these things is clearly down, and then it obviously depends. Okay, are you trading low time frames? You can trade the low time frames with a bullish bias because the trend's up until it isn't anymore. But I find that kind of discussion, like the trend discussion, always bores me out because there's so many ways to look at it. If you zoom in on the 1 hour chart, this is clearly an uptrend, right? And then if you look at the 4 hour chart, still an uptrend. And you look at the daily chart, and it's still an uptrend. And you look at the weekly chart, and it's clearly a downtrend. So yeah, it depends on what kind of time frame you look at. If your high time frame, like if you're looking at this high time frame, it's in a downtrend, in my opinion, depending if you look at it from this kind of view, or if you go even higher and then you go in the monthly, you're like, okay, this is the low, and then you have a higher low here. But yeah, for me, it's still in a high time frame downtrend. That's why I'm thinking like it's probably gonna get rejected here. If it starts breaking out there, it's at least kind of made its way through the first resistance. That is a little bit away from price, because this was actually like part of the downtrend, right? I wouldn't necessarily say, okay, this is the first resistance and it's broken that, because I mean, it's literally the top of the trading range. So
CT Spectator asks, but this time it ranged for a long time. Doesn't it make some difference? What do you think?
I mean, it ranged for a long time here too, and then went down, right? I mean, could this be the bottom? Definitely. I mean, like I said, I've been saying this is the high time for, like, if you want to buy XLM for whatever reason, you're buying it at these areas, and it hit those areas and it went up. So I mean, I'm not bearish on this. I'm just saying, like, I'm expecting it to, like, if it goes up here, it's probably gonna start pulling back again. I mean, in general, whenever something in crypto goes sideways, people like something moves down, goes sideways for a long time, people are like, this is accumulation, it's gonna go to new all-time highs, right? For me, it's not necessarily the case. If you look at all the altcoins in general, all they've been doing is, I mean, they've had their crazy runs and then went down and now they're going sideways, right? In any kind of normal market, people would be like, oh shit, this is consolidation in a bearish trend, this is gonna go down. In crypto, it's like, okay, this goes sideways, it's accumulation, it's gonna go up. For me, I mean, in traditional markets, it is clearer that, like, this is probably gonna be bearish, because whenever crypto goes sideways, like whenever crypto actually finds, like, any kind of altcoins find buyers, it's usually the case that it at least pops a little, and that's why I think these kind of patterns are so often the case in crypto, where you go sideways and you pop and everyone gets excited and then you actually get sellers again. But yeah, I don't know, like, for me, sideways doesn't mean it's gonna go up or it's gonna go down. It just means, okay, you have consolidation, and after the consolidation, you can kind of say, okay, it's probably gonna go up or down, but not necessarily like, okay, this went sideways for a long time, now it has to go up. For me, that doesn't really make much sense. I think you look at the trend, it's trending down, and then you look at the resistance, the first significant resistance, and you look for sells there. And then if it starts reclaiming that, right, if it goes back up, I mean, sure, buy it and play to the next resistance. Or even if you're like super bullish on XLM for whatever reason, because I don't really see a long-term reason to be bullish on XLM. But if you're super bullish, just play it to the highs again. But like, I'm never gonna expect it to do, like, that might be my underlying bias, right? If I look at XLM, I'm always gonna be bearish leaning, just because it's XLM. I mean, you literally have people trying to sell as much as they can without crashing the market, and that's been the history of this coin, and I mean XRP as well. So I mean, I'm always gonna assume that for both of these, XRP and XLM, that they're always only going up, so that the people that have a shitload of them can sell whatever they have, and then, I mean, for me, the trend's always, I'm gonna expect the trend to go down, and for me, the trend is also, like, it's clearly down. Hope that makes sense. I mean,
Someone's asking about, well, we've got Tezos, BTC, and USD. I can have a quick look at the BTC pair.
yeah.
Let me steal the spotlight.
Let me shut really quick. You're good to go.
Cool. Yeah. So with XTZ, certainly the Bitcoin pair, I don't trade the perp. Don't look at the perp. Two weekly levels that I've been looking at when price was in a narrower low time frame range was pretty much, again, you'll see a common theme. You have resistance at the highest close, and then you have support at the lowest close, right? And again, deferring to recency, the recent consolidation. What happened since then? Look, using these levels, right? And we got bullish XTZ. Gosh, sounds like a paid group thing. We were bullish XTZ. This is bullshit. But like, we looked at the technicals around this point, and talked about how you had a breakdown from the range, reclaimed it, and then you had some bullish price action, for lack of a better term, price finding support back at the level. And my view then was we're going to reach towards the opposite side of the range, right? You reclaim one side, you get the deviation or whatever, the failed breakdown, you reestablish support at the level, and it's probably going to go to the next level. It did that, but even now that has been flipped, which is great. But where does that leave XTZ at the moment? Well, just looking the eye test on the weekly chart, you can see it's the top of the weekly range, right? If you want to use this highest close here, and then this lowest close here. For me, it's at the top of the range, at resistance, decent place for profit taking, etc. If we get whatever, slight pullback, break in market structure, blah, 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 then we can get a weekly high time frame kind of bullish view based off the shift in market structure. But the dominant theme and my presumption is going to be that price is in a range, and I don't have really strong reasons to believe that the range is going to fail or that we're going to, break out. For example, if we had a failed breakdown on the high time frame below the range low, and then we start flying towards the range high, I might think, okay, this might have some extra fuel because we've trapped these guys, and you kind of got the high time frame incentive, for lack of a better term, for this to trade, for this to be a breakout, right? But given it's pretty much support resistance, I think it's in a good spot for profit taking, blah blah blah, and to perhaps look for pullbacks. And again, if you look at the kind of price action pattern we're talking about, it's the same thing. You get a level of resistance, price pulls back, price closes above it, right? Which is what it did here on the weekly time frame. If you use the close, which I do, if you disagree, that's absolutely fine. This isn't science. Pulls back to support, and now has pulled back to the original level of resistance, right? Original level of resistance. This is the kind of overshooting high, and it's back at this level. Now, is this 100% guaranteed, whatever pattern? No. But for me, what does the weight of the evidence suggest? Well, we're at the top of the range during consolidation, right? It's at resistance. That kind of seems reasonable to me. In terms of pullback levels, the good thing is that there's a kind of really good one, even if we use this weekly range, where you've pretty much got resistance at the top of the range, support at the bottom of the range, and then you can see that short-term market structure was broken, right? You've got this low and then a lower low. Where did that break in market structure kind of come from? And you've got this high here, which is currently acting as support. So this could be our high time frame range for Tezos, and there could be some shorter term trading opportunities at the range midpoint. But for those asking the kind of high time frame view, etc., for me, it's at resistance on a high time frame. I didn't think I've got a whole lot to add to that. I mean, even just kind of eyeballing it, it should be pretty straightforward, right? It's towards the top or in an area where it topped previously. Could it do a link and just break that? I was wrong about link. Well, not wrong really. I wasn't bearish, but I was saying, look, I don't have an entry buying the range high. That's that hasn't changed. But until I get good high time frame proof, otherwise, I'm going to presume it's in an area of resistance. The good thing about link is that it actually gave a timely signal in that regard. One that I think I ignored. Well, actually, I almost certainly ignored. Otherwise, I could have been long, right? Boo-hoo. Where you had the highest close, right? Yeah, this is what exactly I'm talking about, right? You have this consolidation. Literally looks one-to-one like Tezos. So maybe we have a bullish kind of trigger that we can account for. You had resistance. You had the overshoot at resistance. Price found resistance at the level, but then you got a weekly close above it, right? Nothing crazy. It wasn't like a mega engulf, whatever close. But technically, if it were bearish, after closing below the level here, it should have traded lower. It didn't. You got to close above the high time frame level, and then you got the impulse. So we can apply a similar logic to XTZ, right? Where we have this kind of a very similar structure. You've got range high, highest close on the weekly. That's what worked for Link. Lowest close in the weekly as well. We're going to presume it's resistance, but we know that if we get a high time frame close through it, there's a good chance that it basically follows Link and goes way higher. Okay, or it could go up, could go down. Well, not quite. For me, it's moving sideways. It's at resistance, but I've got a very clear, or at least a reasonable outline for if this level doesn't do its job, then nothing really is going to do its job, and we might get a bit of a follow-up to the Link move. That's kind of the best I can do. I feel. I hope that makes sense.
It does. It does.
Let's stop presenting.
I mean,
There we
that's
go.
pretty much a Head and Shoulders, isn't it? I
Sure.
mean, in the building process of one. So I mean, that's gonna be a good tell for the altcoins, I think.
Yeah,
Or
like is it going to follow Link or is it going to take a shit, right?
Yeah, because if you think about it, like it is a clear range, and it's at the top of the range, and if it starts running, I mean, I don't think the altcoins, like every altcoin, is gonna follow. That's kind of something that hasn't been happening this entire kind of run up. It's just select few that are going up. So if this starts breaking out, and I mean, I think I definitely wouldn't want to short here. Like the reason why I wouldn't want to short here is because XTC and Link have been moving. Like they
Yeah.
they have been moving similar, and they have both been outliers. So like Link's broken to the upside, so you wouldn't necessarily want to short that high. I think.
Yeah, it's kind of like what we wrote in the newsletter, right? Like it's at resistance. It's probably not the best resistance to short, but if you can get a bullish breakout entry, which isn't a top buy, great. My system, or at least we both wrote that something not, that's not where our kind of proficiency lies.
Yeah.
I think that's a similar kind of logic can be applied.
So I mean, yeah, I fully agree. So not necessarily the place to look for shorts. I think even though it's at range high and it could dump off. In general, like shorting altcoins, and I talked about this last time I streamed, is a little bit. I think it's worse than longing, just based on the fact, like even though I think a lot of these altcoins are gonna go down over in the long run. The thing is, like if you long an altcoin at the bottom and you get like a times 10 or like a times 5, you're much better off than if you short an altcoin at the top and it goes down 90%.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
So in general, I think leaning, like even if you're not bullish on altcoins, just looking for like the crazy stuff, like looking for deep wicks down that you can kind of get to buy. I think it's much like for the most people, it's much better to buy altcoins, even though like in the long run, as a trader anyway, like as an investor, I think it's not necessarily the same thing. Like I wouldn't necessarily, like if a friend told me, do I invest into whatever Link or Tezos or something, I'd say no. If a friend asked me like, how should I trade these things, and I would have to answer because usually I tell people just not to, but if I had to answer, I'd say you look for deep moves down and then you buy them, rather than looking for strong moves up and shorting them.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I also generally dislike. Yeah, I agree with what you've said about Tezos. At the top of the range, so was Link, right? If it starts poking its head above the top of the range, I mean, God, just probably not the spot to be bearish. I think it's also a great point you made about it being a tell for the altcoin market generally. That if the most bullish kind of Link correlated one fails to make new highs, probably not the best sign. And I also generally don't like, and this is something you talk about a lot, how the majors and even ETH BTC has just been pretty shoddy compared to some of these outliers, right? It doesn't have this kind of market-wide risk appetite for altcoins feel to it. Certainly not when looking at where you'd expect money to flow to. I mean, maybe the counter argument to that is the whole DeFi, that's where the smart money allocation is and the old guard's dying. But do you have any strong or conclusive views on that? Because I don't.
I think it's just like, I honestly think, and I could be completely wrong on that, and I mean the future's gonna tell if I'm right or wrong, but I think this is just this old season or whatever is a lot of people like going from one coin to another. I mean, you kind of see the big coins like having a lot of trouble. I think there's sellers on those that kind of just try to catch the up moves on the other ones. I don't really think there's a lot of new money coming into the space, but I could be completely wrong on that. In the altcoin space, I mean, in Bitcoin, I'd be surprised if there wasn't new money coming in. It's definitely not like in the case of Bitcoin. I don't think it's much of retail, because really, like, crypto has been very, very silent recently. Like, there's not really much talk about crypto.
Yeah,
And
but that big Bitcoin scam, bro. You heard
yeah.
about it? The quicker Bitcoin scam. What a scam, bro.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the biggest kind of news that we've had in a long, long time, right? Like the biggest kind of normal media presence has been that Bitcoin scam on Twitter. And for me, I mean, it makes sense to me, because when you look at the traditional markets, you look at Tesla going complete. I mean, I can show a chart for the people that haven't seen it. Um, this is Tesla, right? So you have like one of the most retail friendly stocks looking like this, right? There's not really much reason to go beyond your comfort zone of stocks and kind of delve into the crypto space when you have stocks doing something like this, I think.
Also,
But
just as a very useless side note, if you look at the 15-minute time frame, it actually does doing that exact thing you talked about, where it's like sideways, is it going to pump, whatever. That same pattern is just 1-to-1 on the 15-minute time frame. No,
do you mean this one?
on Tesla on the 15-minute, it's done that whole thing you talked about with the
Yeah.
big rally and then starts moving sideways.
Yep. This thing. We'll see how that plays out. I'd be shocked if this doesn't dump anytime soon, because it's getting completely ridiculous. I mean, the traditional market's been going kind of crazy in the last few weeks, but this is a little bit nuts in my opinion. Like when you have Tesla go and be pretty much the biggest car company that you can imagine, being like multiple times, like worth multiple times more than the other ones. I mean, I'm just kind of stumped on that. But I mean, you could say the same thing here, right? Don't counter trend, don't counter trade the trend. But like at some point, like unreasonable stuff like this has to end. But maybe it's not unreasonable, and I'm just missing something. That's why I'm just kind of sticking to my crypto bubble, because that's easier for me to
Yeah,
tell. And I mean, just looking at these majors, I think there's just been like people sitting in these majors having pain because they're sitting in altcoins, and altcoins are moving up and these are doing nothing. So they start selling them and start trying to get into these trending coins. And
I think that's a reasonable view.
and I mean, I don't think it's not necessarily the worst idea, right? It's just if you sell this stuff, like the majors, to buy like the trending coins, and then you buy into something that's up 500%, and then Bitcoin starts moving big again, this Bitcoin, like Bitcoin Cash, for example, is going to be down like 10, 15, 20%, and that coin that is up 500% is going to be down 50, 60, 70%, and then they're going to curse themselves again. Um, but that's the name of the game, right? That's just how it's played.
One thing I don't like, and kind of goes off what you were talking about with equities, is that we've been tracking the S&P to the downside pretty effectively, but we've been captured, as far as I know, from what I've seen. Maybe I'm completely wrong, and it's just my impression. But we've been tracking the downside very effectively. But when it's had its breakouts, etc., like its big moves, we've been nowhere near as efficient as tracking the upside. Right?
Yeah,
That kind of sucks. It's almost, it's like we're correlated, but also only when you don't want to be correlated. I'm not sure how bullish that is, right? I won't use the S&P to purely trade kind of or get my entire directional bias, etc., for Bitcoin
yeah,
technicals, but that kind of development I don't think is entirely positive, right?
yeah. I agree. I mean, I talked about this in the last stream on Wednesday. That's why this arrow came from, by the way, for the people wondering.
Right, right.
Um, this is pretty much a Bitcoin price action, and this is the XPX price action. So I compared this in the last stream, and I was like, I'm not a big fan. Um, but then again, like this going so crazy up, it's not surprising that Bitcoin can't follow. Um, but we'll just have to wait and see, right? I mean, it's already kind of challenging the highs again. So no
Also,
idea
you'll
how
hate
to.
me for this, but we
Yeah.
are almost so close to 100 likes on this video. If you could express your support for those in the chat, let's get to 3 figures, just like my net worth, and that'll make me very happy.
Three figures in the millions. That's how it goes.
Obviously.
Obviously.
Any final stuff you kind of want to look at or clean up, or any questions that
people have
jump
been
out at you?
asking about Dogecoin a lot, so I'm
Oh,
gonna
go
quickly
on.
look
That'd
at
be a great
Dogecoin.
note.
I mean, Dogecoin, it's kind of funny, right? It did all this kind of TikTok shit, pumped really hard, and then just ran into range high, and it literally closed at the range high last week. So I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it's just going back to ranging, honestly. Um, One thing on the low time frames is that I've been seeing just like in the last few days is that it's kind of doing something like a basing thing where it could go back up. But if you're stuck in long, I think that's where you want to take your exit. Like this doesn't look like something that wants to go really, really high to me. It looks like if you're lucky, you get out at like 43, 44 sats and then it goes down. And I've been dreaming about this. Like it'd be so beautiful if like the TikTok people, because like most of them, like all memings aside, like most of them haven't sold, and I don't think it's too much money. It's decent money, but it's not too much money, and I think they're gonna be looking for exits pretty much anywhere once it starts dumping. And then I hope like those people fill my bids, but it's just the dreams of a duck. I don't know, but I think like a move up wouldn't be like too out of the question. I think like a move up to like 39, 40 sats makes a lot of sense. But I think in general, like it probably heads lower or like at least goes sideways for a lot longer. Like if this starts to kind of consolidate into this high time frame resistance for like 3, 4, 5 days, I'd maybe think about picking something up. But so far, I think like maybe higher and then lower or just generally lower. That's kind of my view on it. But that could just be me waiting to get a fill because really this has been frustrating sitting out on the sidelines when it just pumps like this. So yeah, that's Dogecoin. All the other ones, like the major ones, like this is all a little bit worrisome, I think, for the altcoin bulls. It doesn't really make much sense for me to be bullish on the entire alt sector when you have all the majors look weak. It's going to be interesting for EOS, for example, what it does at the range low here. If it just fails that again, I think we're in for some big down moves. As long as it holds, maybe not. But yeah, like these kind of charts, they're the ugly side of the old season that everyone keeps talking about right now, um, which don't inspire much confidence in me. But then again, like there's a lot of other coins we haven't really talked about many that have decent setups. Like I mean XLM for example, we talked about that. I don't think that's a terrible setup to play.
Strat as well, right? The one that kind of looks
Exactly.
like XLM. A
Um,
lot of the ones in the chat, I mean, while Don's talking, for example, like Vet, I had a quick look at RLC. I mean, a lot of those are just up a shit ton, right? You had the daily, weekly breakouts, and it looks pretty crazy. I sort of agree with Donald's earlier tentative conclusion that in those cases, once the ship has sailed and thing goes flying, I generally don't like to chase those, right? Because if it's the top and you get dumped on, it could easily wick like, let's say 20, 30% in a day, right? Like the kind of pattern that you talked about. And at that point, you're out. I think generally the more risk defined and just, I think, preferable, at least for me, approach is exactly parroting what Donald said, where if you see these massive ones that have broken out, look at what they broke or what the technical structure was before the buyers really stepped in, and then look at other instruments in the same position with the same pattern. Generally, I think for trading, certainly if you're not super experienced or if your system doesn't cater for it, it's easier to find other coins which haven't gone apeshit yet, rather than look for momentum continuation entries on those that are kind of in the middle of nowhere. You know, I think that would be my advice. If it feels like we're ignoring requests in the chat, we're not, and we obviously can't do all of them. There are tons of paid groups where you have people who will do charts for you in unlimited ways. Maybe that's the better thing. I certainly have no intent. Doesn't, not a good use of our time. But generally, if you look at something and you feel like you've missed the move or it's done a crazy amount of work already, there's a better chance to find something that hasn't done that yet but looks similar. That'd be my advice there. I don't know. Maybe I'm just really shit at momentum continuation entries, and that's my bias. But I think generally it's a bit easier, right?
yeah. I mean, I generally don't like to buy into these huge pumps myself. Like, one, you don't really have too much liquidity to. I mean, if you end up being the top, that stings, and you don't really get. That's the problem with these tops, right? With the altcoin tops, you don't get a chance to dump it. Like, let's say you bought the top here, you don't really get the luxury of getting out anywhere. You're like, oh yeah, it might retest. Like, it goes down here, it might retest, so I can get out. Usually, you don't get it. So, if it starts dumping on you, don't be married to it. And
hey, but the upside of not being able to get out is you automatically become an admin in the Telegram chat room for coin, right?
True. And then maybe you can even like, I mean, I've had a friend literally do that. Like, bought the top of an altcoin and then went into a Telegram group and got paid to do their marketing and shit for them. So,
listen, I'm not proud of it. You don't have to bring it up, dude. Jeez.
What happened?
The joke was that you were talking about me, but you're way too German to understand it.
No, I was just looking at the chat and someone like you had just deleted like someone like a million times. I was like, oh shit, what did I miss?
Nothing crazy.
Okay. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it, right?
Yeah, I think that's a good note to round off on. And casual Fridays shouldn't be, we're not trying to set up a 24-hour stream. Trader SZ entering at the worst possible time at the end. Nice to see you, mate. But good news is that he agreed to come on one of these casual Fridays to be our guest. So that'll be cool. Ask him a bunch of hard questions about Rangers and all his thirsting on Twitter. So you'll see him on the channel in the very near future. It'll be on one of these Fridays. Other stuff, thank you for breaking. When we asked for 100 likes, got 150. Thank you very much for those who liked the video. Really helps us. Also subscribing to the channel, doing all that kind of stuff. Helps us out a lot, and hopefully you're enjoying the content. One thing I always forget, or at least more often than I'd like to, our previously paid, super exclusive, just kidding, not really newsletter is now free. It's literally in the description. Type in your email, check a box, and it comes out every Tuesday at 8 p.m. UTC. So go check that out. It's a bit more kind of systematic and joint opinion-y type of stuff. And that means the content schedule ends up being me on Monday, newsletter Tuesday, Donald Wednesday, and a guest on Friday. So there's a lot going on. And lastly, of course, well, not lastly, but maybe the last thing I'll say, thank you to Bybit for sponsoring Technical Roundup. I say this every time, and Donald hates it, but they give us money, so you don't have to, type of thing, and that's kind of why it works. But it's also great to be able to share this with you guys. So yeah, that's all we've got. The next little bit of content will be me on Monday. Hopefully, we'll have something to talk about, but it might just turn into the S&P 500 waiting room over the weekend. We'll see what happens. But yeah, newsletter free, YouTube, like, subscribe, do all the stuff. Any final words from the duck?
No, I'm all good.
Very inspirational. Okay, guys, thank you very much. I will see you all on Monday.
Bye-bye.
Take care.